But I know that Bob Kravitz is here, and I know Dylan Sin from Journal Gazette is here. Bob, of course, from the Athletic, and we were just talking off air. He wasn't able to be with us last week, but he left a golden nugget for us instead. He left a present under the tree, so to speak, with that incredible piece that you put out titled "Indiana Post Bobby Knight: After Years of Struggle, the Hoosiers Have Their Man," and it was a perfectly strung, as you call it, an oral history. But after his intro, you spoke to Jared Jeffries, Brian Evans, Joe Hillman, Dean Garrett, and first of all, I know Brian Evans just tells it like it is. I know Joe Hillman tells it like it is. Joe Hillman, Dean Garrett, he's as honest as well, and not he's out in Vegas and not from here, and Jared Jeffries is a Bloomington guy, and so he's going to tell it like it is. So you certainly picked, and Joe Hillman, for somebody who was not born in Indiana, I don't know if you could find more of an Indiana guy than Joe Hillman. He lives, eats, and breathes, sleeps Indiana, IU basketball, but the history. He knows the damn history, and that amazes me when someone he came in from California, but yet he knows the history of IU basketball, and he takes it seriously to this day. And I love that. And
we talked for well over an hour. I talked with Joe for well over an hour, and I spoke with Brian Evans for well over an hour. And you can hear the passion in their voice, and it's important to them. It's whether you're from Indiana or not. If you've had any relationship with the basketball program at the level that those guys have had, you're going to have a certain passion, and those guys certainly have it. And look, they were critical, really critical of Archie Miller. I love that one quote from Brian Evans saying he was like a POW. Like we went to Dayton, stuck him in the trunk of a car, and brought him to Bloomington, kicking and screaming. That was Archie, and it just never worked out. I don't blame Dolson for making the move that he made, because that thing was going nowhere fast.
Oh no, he had to make that. You could feel it. That was just something you could feel. It was palpable, and it was also visual. You could just see it. It's like you've got to be lost not to see this. And
let me tell you a little background of that story. So a couple of weeks, and you remember, Jim, because I called you to get some phone numbers. A couple of weeks before the Big Ten tournament, I was, remember they lost 5-6 in a row down the stretch. And so I was going to come out during the Big Ten tournament with a what the hell is wrong with IU basketball story? What in the name of Uwe Blop has happened here? And then they went and they beat, Michigan. They beat Illinois. They damn near beat Iowa. They got to the NCAA. They beat Wyoming in the first four. And I was like, well, what the hell is wrong with Indiana story probably wouldn't work real well right now. I was looking at those quotes. I was like, God, this is really good stuff. I want to use it somehow. So I had to think of a way to present it so that it was like, okay, things are looking up. Things are going well for Mike Woodson. But why haven't they the last 22 years? Is he the guy to move them forward, et cetera, et cetera? But I just changed the focus of the story and was able to use all those quotes, and I thought it came out well. It really blew up on the Athletic site.
It was great, and now the fact that I know that was actually a different story, and you turned it into something other that was equally great. That is the mark of a great journalist, man, and a great writer, people. You can't just turn gold out of nothing all the time, and he does it. But not only, you also talk to Mike Davis, and
he was great.
He's another guy that I have to say that I love, because he has always been so gracious. He's come on the show a few times. He's honest. you never get coaches who are freaking honest. Coaches are just inherently not honest as far as how they present things, especially if it makes them look bad. And he's just honest, and I love that.
The thing that, and he said this to me before, but he did the whole thing backwards. He should have started at Detroit and then gone to UAB and wherever else,
Georgia or Texas Southern or whatever.
Texas Southern, and then gone to Indiana. He did it all back asswards, right? So my favorite Mike Davis story, though, and it wasn't in my story, but my favorite story personally is after he was given the full-time job. I forget the year. It was probably after, I guess the second year. He went up to me and our friend, the late Terry Hutchins, and said, "You guys have got to do me a favor. If I ever, I don't know if I can use the word on the air, but if I ever start acting like a bleep, I want you guys to tell me." And we did. Terry, to his great credit, would tell Mike, you're turning into, you're making this mistake or that mistake, not on the basketball floor, but the way he dealt with people. And I mean, for the most part, he was great. I loved Mike. He was thrown into an impossible position. I was really glad to hear Joe Hillman.
Yes.
Look, he took the job. What in the hell is he supposed to do?
Exactly.
You get offered the Indiana basketball job, whether you're ready or not, you take it, man.
You're damn right.
You bet on yourself. And by God, in the second year, he had him in the NCAA final game.
Yeah, and I know people like to say that. Well, that was with Knight's players. Well, Knight didn't do the recruiting really then, first of all. But so I'm like, all right. But even if that is the case, Bob Knight had his own players for the almost a decade, an entire decade prior to that, and he couldn't get out of the freaking second round of the tournament. He won. Mike Davis won more NCAA tournament games in his run to the final championship game than I think Bob Knight won in his previous 7 seasons in totality. So,
and he changed things up. I was talking with Jerry Jeffries. I don't think it made the story.
And I saw it. I didn't know this.
But he took the shackles off. I mean, you look at guys like Hornsby, Fife, especially Tommy Coverdale. Coverdale was a lost puppy under Knight. And look, Knight was a hard person to play for. You had to have a certain type of personality and approach. And, Mike Davis came in. He changed a lot of what they do offensively. It was a lot more set plays, a lot less motion offense, which I know drives Indiana fans crazy, that there are, in fact, other ways to play the game and more modern ways to play the game. And, once those guys had the shackles taken off, they played exceptional basketball, and they got a little lucky. They played some lower seeds until they ran into Duke. I mean, they
of which they were down 17 points to the number 1 and defending national champion with Carlos Boozer and
oh my gosh,
who was the other
Williams?
Jay Williams.
Jay Williams, but they also had the other big man, Carlos Boozer, and there was another one.
I know who you're talking about, but I'm having a brain. I'm only on my first cup of coffee, so
me too, Mike. But the greatest picture I've told AJ Moye anytime he's on, if that's me, my home is wallpapered in that poster picture.
That poster, yeah.
I mean, I'm wallpapering everything, baby. That is just the greatest. Mr. What is he, 6'4" or is he 6'6"? But it doesn't matter. Boozer's 6'8". He's just got him just
right
palmed. Oh, it's just beautiful. I was at that game. That was nuts.
Can you imagine if Jay Williams had hit those free throws? Dane Fife would not be allowed back in the state of Indiana. That would have been a Chris Webber moment.
Oh yeah, Mike Davis dropped to his knees and buried his face in his hands on his band. It was
exactly.
But I remember
it was great to talk to Mike again. He's always really good with his time, and he's an honest guy, and he's self-aware, which you don't always find in sports. He knew that he was not ready for the job, But if somebody is going to give you the job, you might as well take it and run with it. And he did a hell of a job.
Then Dylan, then they move on to Kelvin Sampson, and I love everyone was so honest about this. Of course, I didn't expect anything different from Brian or Joe. Joe says that Kelvin was just a really bad hire. Evans just says stunned, absolutely stunned. Dean Garrett says, I think Sampson thought he was bigger than the program. And yeah, that was one of the dumbest hires by Indiana, and they made some really dumbass hires even since then. And that was just a totally dumbass hire that was forced on the athletic department, and I don't get that. I've never. That was just.
I've always felt that was an Dr. Adam Herbert hire, and the men and women in the board of trustees. Rick Greenspan. I don't think that was a Rick Greenspan hire, but he ended up holding the bag on it. And my whole point is, if they're making basketball hires and you're out of the loop, you need to quit that job. I mean, if that's your purview as an AD to hire, the basketball coach at Indiana, which is merely the most important hire you're going to make ever. And it was taken out of Greenspan's hands. Now, don't misunderstand me. I did not like Rick Greenspan at all, but I can't fully put the responsibility for the Sampson hire on him.
Well, I love the story that Brian Evans told about Sampson, and I'm still shaking my head. It actually reminds me of Moneyball when he's going to hire the kid away from Cleveland, the analytics guy, and he says,
"Oh yeah,
when I left your office, you looked me up on Google. Would you have drafted me first, or?" And he said, "Yeah." And then he said, "No, would you have drafted me?" "No, I'd have drafted you in the 9th round and no signing bonus and this, that, and the other thing." And Brian Evans says when it came to his introductory press conference, Sampson came up to him and says, Lefty, I got a story to tell you. And they said the Magic called him in '96 about drafting him or Oklahoma's Ryan Miner. And of course, he had come from Oklahoma. And he said, I told him I'd take Ryan Miner every day of the week, twice on Sunday. He said he shook my hand and he's thinking, what a dumb story. Why would you tell me that?
Right.
That just makes you think, yeah, what are you thinking, dude? You're here to endear yourself, and you're talking to one of the greatest players ever, and you tell him a stupid-ass story like that?
It's something that people don't know, and I don't know if this has ever been reported, but if Sampson had held on, if he hadn't cheated and done all the things that he did,
great coach,
there would be the candy stripes would be gone because he thought they looked stupid, and names would be on the back of jerseys. But he wanted to wait until he won enough before he could make those kinds of changes to Indiana University and the program. And he won, but at what price? You had a bunch of guys who couldn't find the classroom with Google Maps. There was a lot of drug use going on. You remember Jeff Rabjohns a couple of years ago talked with Eric Gordon, and Eric Gordon talked about there being a drug issue with the team, and so I love these notes that people send you. Mr. Kravitz looks like he's feeling good today. Do I always look like I feel like I look like crap?
No, I'm telling you, I think it's the background. I think it's the background. It's just
the background. Does it make me look brighter?
It's brighter. It's just I thought you were in Florida on vacation.
No, I was in Jersey last week at the Jersey Shore for vacation. That's why I couldn't come on.
Did you see Paulie Walnuts?
I did not see Paulie. No, Paulie Walnuts died just before we got there. But I hooked up with Snooki. It's a thing you do at the Jersey Shore.
You're cutting in on Dylan's territory, man.
Yeah.
You can have her, buddy.
God.
You can have her.
Dylan, I know you read this piece too. What were some of your favorite takes?
Well, I mean, I guess the question I had for you, Bob, is obviously these guys enjoy talking about this stuff. I guess the question I had for you is what does that say to you about guys who want to talk about this stuff and having alumni who want to talk about the program a decade or more after they were part of it, because they still care about the future trajectory of how it's going.
Yeah, I mean, look, these guys were very, very enthusiastic about talking, and I could have reached out to several more people, but it was already a 5,000 word piece. It was getting a little long there, and you know how editors get. But even at the Athletic, where we write these monstrous stories, but yeah, I mean, I just think these guys have been suffering and struggling with this program for the last 20 some odd years. I think I wrote that, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I wrote that IU hadn't been in the NCAA final in 22 years. My math is really bad. It was 20 years. But regardless.
Who's counting?
Yeah. Well, me and math, I'm a journalism major. So.
Well, but this begs, your piece actually begs another question. They went through hiring Mike Davis, which was cool. And there was really not, I think that was an emergency situation. They were trying to hold on to the team. So I understand it. But then when all the next hires, there were so many questions. And yet, why don't they consult a select group of former elite players, like, from a couple different eras, like you did, to get to these comments? Because if I'm doing some hiring and I'm getting these comments back, I'm not hiring.
Well, let me tell you something. If I'm talking to Brian Evans and he tells me that John Calipari is interested, damn right I'm going after him. At one point, I told Greenspan that I thought that Tom Izzo might be interested, and he completely ignored it. He never followed up.
Did they even talk to Calipari?
No, I don't think so. I
don't
know for sure. It's many years.
Did he have the Memphis stain on him already?
I don't think so. He had the Massachusetts stain, but that really wasn't on him. That was an agent and Marcus Camby. You know what? It's a funny thing. Thinking in terms of stories. And Dylan, I don't know if you were there or if you were in diapers then, but that when Sampson got hired, they had a big press conference at Assembly Hall, and they fill the place with people excited about Kelvin. And I had already ripped the crap out of Kelvin at least 4 times before he ever said a word. And I asked the first question at the press conference, and it was about his graduation rate, which was minimal, and the NCAA violations he committed while at Oklahoma. And the fans booed the hell out of me. But to Sampson's credit, he knew it was coming. He had to know it was coming. And he had a pretty good BS answer for what happened. Then he went and did it all over again. So great coach for basketball, not such a great life coach in my view.
Yeah. And that's I guess the question on that, I guess it demonstrates the fans that they care about the stuff like graduation rates and NCAA following the rules and things like that, but they'd like to win some games. Like that's right. When the rubber meets the road, that's what they care about, and that's every fan base, I think.
Well, look, I mean, how many coaches get financial incentives for having a high graduation rate? I mean, they're there to win, and I think there are still people who feel like, and some people at my shop still feel like, well, all he did was call recruits. Well, those were the rules back then. We can argue that the rules were stupid. We can argue that the rules have changed and that what he did back then would not be improper or illegal now. Improper, I should say, or illegal based on NCAA rules. But he did break the damn rules. I mean, it's supposed to be a semi-level playing field, and he tried to. And I talked to him privately about it once or twice, and I was just not convinced that he got it, that he saw that he did some bad things and that he needed to be held to account for them.